Hello, mysterious person behind the screen, and welcome back to our classic Doctor Who commentaries. I'm once again joined by Isaac,
Hello, everyone.
and this time we are on the second Doctor, and we are doing the Mind Robber. So, without further ado,
If you'd like to sync this up with your own copy of The Mind Robber, put the episode to the start on play all and press play in 3, 2, 1, go.
an unusual story for the Triton era. This one,
It is, yes, and yeah, it's not your typical base under siege story. In fact, you can't really compare it to any other story like it in the Troughton era, because it's definitely one of the most surreal Doctor Who stories ever. In fact, the only one I could compare it to of the 60s is probably the Celestial Toymaker because of the fantasy element.
yeah, I think so. And something I noticed when I got to this in my marathon a few months ago was that where it comes in the chronology of the Triton era is it's very interesting because it's probably the most different and unique and creative thing that the show has done since I'd say season 4.
Probably, yeah. Because, yeah, as much as I like season 5, every story is pretty much the same.
Oh yeah,
Every
yeah,
story.
yeah. I mean, season 5 is my favorite Triton season.
The stories in. Yeah, definitely me as well. And I think the stories would have benefited if it
Yeah,
just makes it a bit more repetitive.
yeah.
Heck, even I think even Patrick Troughton was getting sick of the base under siege format every week.
Well, yes, he was. Yeah, and it's quite well known. And I mean, this is season 6 now, and I think it's quite well known that Triton did not like season 6 as much. He had some misgivings about season 6, and I don't know what he felt about
Season
this one.
5 is. Yes. Well, when did.
What was that? Sorry.
I was just saying, Wendy Padbury has said this is her favourite story.
Oh, interesting. Well, I can see that because it is very. It's an example of Doctor Who being very ingenious and working with very low resources, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost. Yeah, you could compare this unfavourably to the Dominators, because they're both similar. They both had troubled productions. They're both at the end of a production block where there's hardly any money left. And the Dominators is an example of the troubled production working against them, but here they're doing their best to overcome it, particularly with Fraser Hines getting chicken pox and having to be written out.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this episode 1 in particular reminds me a lot of The Edge of Destruction in that they had episodes to fill, or in this case, one episode to fill.
It's practically a
And yeah.
it's practically a,
Mm.
it's a shame Peter Ling, who wrote this story, didn't write any more because I think when Derek Sherwin approached him, he said, "But I've never written."
Yeah.
Think of Doctor Who being anything; it can be fantasy if you like. So that's what he wrote.
Yeah, well, interesting you say that about the fantasy element. This story wasn't that popular with viewers at the time, was it? It was quite people find it too silly.
That's true. Yeah. And had things gone to plan, this could have been Patrick Troughton's final story because I think it was when Deborah Watling left in Fury from the Deep, he was thinking, oh, I want to leave now as well. But it's interesting how the BBC reacted to it. They said, well, why don't you stay on for another season, and then straight after you finish Doctor Who, we're going to get you in our own production about the Six Wives of Henry VIII, where you can play a leading role. You'll play the Duke of Norfolk. And he said, oh, perfect. So, yeah, they said, stay on for another year and we can guarantee you work straight afterwards.
Interesting. That's very because they clearly liked Patrick Troughton. I think it wasn't a William Hartnell situation where he was becoming so difficult to work with. I think everybody liked Patrick Troughton.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But I know at this point he didn't get on with Peter Bryant very well.
Yes, no, yeah, I've heard that as well. I must say there's some great direction in this as well, because obviously we get to like the high concept fantasy stuff later, but even just the shot, just then with Zoe coming into the room and then the Doctor popping up from below the frame and popping up into the frame is really dynamic.
Well, this is David Maloney's very first Doctor Who story, and yeah, he's one of the series' best directors because he can really create atmosphere.
Absolutely.
It's a shame he didn't do. It's a shame he didn't do a unit story for John Pertwee because I felt he would have been perfect.
That would have been awesome. Yeah, like he could have brought such a great energy to the unit action dynamic.
Have you listened to Legend of the Cybermen, which is a sequel to this story?
I haven't. No.
It's really good. It's fantastic. Again, it's the Sixth Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, and the Cybermen plan to take over the land of fiction because they think if we conquer imagination, that's our first step to conquering humanity and making them like Cybermen. There's like cyber mermaids, cyber dragonflies. I'm not making this up. And with the help of Count Dracula, the Artful Dodger, I think, and I think the Carcass does pop up, yeah, they have to help defeat the Cybermen.
Honestly, that sounds really. I might look into that actually. That does sound a lot of fun. And you know, I've always been about the land of fiction. It's one of those concepts that I'm kind of happy we never went back to in the show. Like, it's kind of one of those nice things that just stands on its own in this story. And, yeah.
True, yeah. Maybe because we don't know that much about it, that helps with the mystery.
Exactly, yeah.
And also, you could sum up this story as the Celestial Toymaker minus the racism.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a clip on YouTube, it's of the reconstruction, and they're doing their best to mute it on the soundtrack, but you can clearly hear them say the N-word during Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, just like, oh, yeah. That's bad.
I wonder if whenever they animate Toymaker, what will they do there? Will they just cut it, or I think they'll probably just cut it.
Yeah, because they have cut a few sequences in animation. Yeah. So I don't think anyone would be wishing for that to be included unless you're a diehard fan who likes everything to be completed.
Yeah, I think on one of the versions of the soundtrack they just have Peter Purvis narrating over it, don't they? So that it's just
I think so, yeah.
Narration.
Plus, isn't Celestial a racial slur?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
I've heard it is, but I'm not too sure because the Celestial Toymaker was mentioned in Can You Hear Me, but they just called him the Toymaker. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to look into that afterwards.
Yeah, and the Toymaker is dressed in Chinese clothing, and apparently Michael Gough did have makeup on him to make him look yellowface. It's a bit harder to tell in black and white, but yeah, I could be completely wrong. Maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion.
No, I never knew that. Obviously, the kind of the Asian kind of clothing is quite obvious, and that's always puzzled me seeing images of the Toymaker. But I never knew about the yellow face thing. I guess we would need color photos that really show out the makeup, but. The effects of them disappearing through the door as well, very simple, but they're very good.
Yeah, the void looks like it goes on forever.
Yeah, it actually looks like a void.
And again, setting a story in a white space, it works very well for Warrior's Gate, and it works really well here.
Yeah. I'd love to know what people like made of just this first episode at the time, because like in a sea of base undersea stories and stories about colonies and warring factions and stuff, it is such a trippy, like it's bathed in like 60s psychedelia. It's like the peak of that
Definitely, yeah.
psychedelic, coming just to the end of that era, really, because obviously it's late 60s. But yeah, it's fascinating.
And the robots we're about to see come up here, I think they're from a. Were they from a show called Out of the Unknown or something, or Into the Unknown?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure what the title was, but it was definitely from another sci-fi show that they
Yeah,
reused.
because they had no money to make anything, so they just took some from another show. And given that this is the land of fiction, they probably inhabit that world as well.
Well,
It
yeah.
makes sense.
What's brilliant about the whole land of fiction thing is you don't really have to play by any rules, because you can say, well, anything that's fiction can be in here. So if we want to reuse anything, we can just say it's fiction, and yeah, it works really well.
And I think Troughton did say you can't have this be 25 minutes. You've got to cut it down to at least 20 because there's no way 3 actors can hold this together. And given that it's the end of the production block, he was basically saying, "Look, we're tired. We're flat out. You
Yeah,
can't keep doing this to us."
yeah, because that's it. Can. It's a 5-parter, but it has the length of a 4-parter, doesn't it? All in all,
Yeah,
just slightly longer than
yeah.
a
Part
4-parter.
part 5 is 18 minutes long.
Yeah,
That is insane,
it's
and how
really.
short it is.
That's another thing. Well, again, when I watched it on my marathon, I was when it finished, I was shocked that it was done, because I was just like that didn't feel like 25 minutes, and then obviously it isn't. It's quite a bit shorter.
Yeah, season 6, in my opinion, has 3 home runs. That's this, the invasion, and the war games.
Mm.
And I'd say it has 2 of Troughton's worst, the Dominators and Space Pirates.
Yeah, yeah. Season 6 is it's the kind of the definition of a mixed bag, I think, because it's got some
It's
amazing
probably
stuff there.
Troughton's. Yeah, it's probably Troughton's weakest season,
Yes.
and it's ironic because it's the one that survives in full the most.
Yeah, it is. And funnily enough, the one story that is fully missing is the worst one.
Yeah, that's a positive, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, those robots look like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, they do. You're right, they do. Yeah.
That was so surreal as well. You just hear Zoe scream, and it's her and Jamie smiling and beckoning their hands. That is so weird.
It's really creepy. It's really like unnerving. And I love that
Yeah.
like this. It's bathed in just this unnerving terror.
And of course, at the end, the TARDIS pretty much blows up. So you think Stephen Moffat was the first to do that? Nope.
What's the thing? It blows up and there's no hint of any resolution, is there? It literally just this crumbles away, and that's the end of the episode. And it's like, holy crap, that is a.
Yeah, because the invasion start. I mean, I don't know if it's in the actual episode itself because I've not seen it, but in the animation they showed the TARDIS reassembling, and the Doctor being like, "Ah, Jamie, we made it, we're back." So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I've not seen the loose cannon reconstruction because obviously it's missing, and I've seen the animation, and apparently the loose cannon reconstruction heavily implies that the mine robber was all a dream.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so I should check that out soon actually, just to see what it's like, because yeah, it sort of with their costumes and stuff, it implies that everything that happened was just all in their heads.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, who knows? I get like we would need to see the actual episode to really like see what the production thought, but yeah.
And another comparison you could make with this story is the Deadly Assassin Part
Yeah.
3 with the Matrix scenes, but they're a lot grittier than this. You're not going to have the carcass pop up in the Deadly Assassin.
I mean, that would be phenomenal. And I'd love to see the hashtag release the carcass cut. But yeah.
I mean, they could get. I mean, yeah, they could get away with the idea that the mind robber is completely a dream because in Amy's Choice they establish. Oh, it was psychic pollen that got into the TARDIS, making us have that
Yeah.
psychic episode. Yeah,
Absolutely, and I think it's there's an argument to be made that this is connected to Amy's Choice in many ways, and the Dream Lord is a part of the Land of Fiction and stuff, and there's unexplored territory there, and I'm always like unsure whether I want it to be explored or not, because I like this kind of there's this portion of the Doctor Who universe that we don't know everything about, or we barely know anything about,
yeah.
and I kind of like that.
I mean, it's a bit like the Dream Lord in that comparison. Like, so many
Yeah,
fans say, "Oh, we want to see the Dream Lord come back," but maybe it's better if he does remain a mystery. And yeah, I'll say this: Amy's Choice is probably the closest story we get to the 11th Doctor facing the Master.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Amy's Choice is a very underrated story, because it's not it's not that it doesn't get it's not that it's hated. It just doesn't get talked about enough, I think.
Yeah, I think it's overshadowed by some other stories in that series,
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
11th Hour, Vincent and the Doctor, the series finale, etc. But yeah, I love it. Amy's Choice.
And me, yeah, it's brilliant.
Ah, I don't want to blow the fluid links again. That happens in The Wheel in Space. They burn out, and the TARDIS literally, in that, because I've seen the animation, the TARDIS interior literally becomes the inside of a police box for a while.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, this cliffhanger is so. It's so surreal and it's so out there. You feel like, where the hell does this story go next?
Yeah.
The TARDIS blows up, Zoe screams, and the Doctor's spinning. They don't seem to be anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, in a minute we get kind of one of the most infamous shots of the classic series with Zoe on the console.
Yeah, that probably spurred many a puberty.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean it is an odd shot, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
very odd shot. um, and it certainly raises a few eyebrows.
Yeah, about as subtle as Nicola Bryant's bikini scene in Planet of Fire.
Yeah, one for the dads.
hmm
But the fact that it's just this like this ringing noise, and then Zoe's screaming as they just in this black void spinning.
Yeah,
It's so surreal. It's so creepy.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think Doctor Who would go this surreal again until probably The Deadly Assassin.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, and that's just the end of the episode. Well, there's no hint that there's some way they might get out of this. There's no hint of realism. It's just that's how it ends.
Yeah. Now, given the Master of the Land of Fiction is called the Master in this, I'm surprised fans haven't tried to say, oh, he's another incarnation of the Master.
Well,
But,
I think people have. I'm sure I've seen that
okay.
somewhere before, and yeah, there's a few fan theories, I think, but I like to think he's.
But
Just
the thing is, the body, the old man, he's just a writer who got scooped up by the computer, isn't he? It's the computer that's the real villain.
Yes, yeah.
So, unless, maybe, because just going back to Dark Water and Death in Heaven, the Master was able to upload people's minds into a huge computer. What if he did it himself?
Yeah, but I mean, wow. There's all sorts of ways you could kind of.
There's the ending for the Master for you if you ever want to write him off forever.
Oh yeah. And I mean, here's another way to fill out the runtime when they don't have enough content. Just make a really long reprise.
Yeah. The weirdest one is in Planet of the Spiders Part 6, where they reprise half of it, but then they intercut it with new material and a ton of exposition.
Yeah.
That's just so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the reprises in the classic era, you save yourself about 5 minutes just fast forwarding through them, especially when some of them later on in the 80s, especially when there's barely any new content in them.
Now, when rehearsals were started for episode 2, Fraser Hines came in, face scratching, and then the doctor realised, you've got chicken pox, you're going to have to go home.
Yeah.
And I think, and obviously, it was the norm for actors to take time off during season so they could have a holiday. And yeah, I'm amazed that they were able to fit round his illness really well.
Yeah, it's an incredibly creative, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. Like the ingenuity and creativity to get around this problem is brilliant. Like that is such an incredible, quick thinking by the production team. It really is a cool little thing.
Yeah, because in stories like The Wheel in Space and The Seeds of Death, oh, the Doctor's been knocked out, put him in bed for another episode or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so incredibly Doctor Who as well. Like it's such a Doctor Who way to get out of an issue, so quirky and quaint almost.
And I do wonder, because the episodes were so close to transmission, I do wonder, at the start of each block, did the regulars have to say to the producer, I've booked this week off for my holidays? I do wonder.
I guess they must have done. I guess it's like any job. You have a certain deadline to say, here's my holidays, this is where I'm not going to be in. Because they'd have to prepare, wouldn't they? They wouldn't. You couldn't just like a week before go, oh, I'm on holiday next week, and then they just have to somehow explain away a character's absence. They'd have to prepare it. And you've got to wonder, considering that Jamie had been on the show for so long at this point, I wonder if like the general public thought that they were just going to recast Jamie and this is how they were going to explain it, because he'd become so like essential to the formula of the show. You
Yeah.
have to wonder if like was Jamie just going to become a standout character who would go on for ages and they just recast him.
I know Hamish Wilson, who plays the replacement Jamie, he sadly passed away last year, I think, due to COVID.
Yes, yeah, I read that somewhere. Yeah, very sad. I don't know. Did he ever do conventions or anything? Or
I'm not too sure. I know. I think in Scotland he did a few acting gigs,
okay.
and I think he turned to teaching drama or something like that because he's on the commentary for this.
Yes, he is. Yeah, yeah. And it helps that he's.
And
Oh yeah, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, I really love how the Master is shot because it kind of looks like he's the devil.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming back to like really inventive direction in this, and I like that they're holding off on showing him.
Yeah, because David Maloney again, he knew how to create atmosphere,
Yeah.
particularly in Genesis of the Daleks. When a Dalek scene, it's not just there's the Dalek, get over it.
Yeah.
He creates inventive camera angles, shoots them in low lighting, so it matters when they're seen.
Absolutely.
And I really love these. I love these toy soldiers as well because they're not particularly threatening on paper, but I think it's those creaking noises that they make and the jerking movements. It just reminds me a lot of the Autons.
They're kind of uncanny valley in that way, aren't they? It's just they're not quite right. Funnily enough, it reminds me of the Santa Claus 2. So
oh god!
All I have in my mind is plastic Tim Allen. He's going to pop out any minute.
And making his first Doctor Who appearance was Bernard Horsfall as well as Gulliver.
Yeah. Oh, was this his first? I didn't realize this was his first appearance. That's because he.
It is, yeah.
He pops up a lot through the classic series. He's yeah.
I mean, I like to think that he plays a Time Lord in the War Games. I like to think that it's Chancellor Goff. By the time we get to the Deadly Assassin, it could be the same one.
Yeah, it'd be a nice bit of continuity. It would be a really nice bit of continuity. And, if you want to kind of add a touch of Russell T Davies style end of time, Waters of Mars prophecy foreshadowing here, I guess you could kind of say that this was the land of fiction subconsciously warning the Doctor about his death. Because I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because obviously it looks the same as the Time Lord as one of the Time Lords that exiles him, and I guess if you want to apply that to this, you could kind of say that.
Yeah.
Because he's in Majesty's Secret Service, isn't he? He's Bond's.
He is, yeah, and he's in Braveheart as well.
Yes, yeah. He pops up a lot. He's one of those actors that just he gets around.
Because I think he and Nicholas Courtney were at drama school together.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure I've heard that before. Yeah.
And also, all of Gulliver's dialogue here, I think, is from his book Gulliver's Travels, which I've not read.
No, I've not read it either, but yeah, because can't they only? One of the rules of this is they can only speak the dialogue in their respective stories.
They can, yeah.
Words that are in their respective stories.
Yeah, because in Legend of the Cybermen, I think that rule is thrown out the window because I just think they speak normally to. Yeah, because I just don't think it'd be very useful if Dracula and the Artful Dodger were speaking dialogue from their books and going up against the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Heck, I think. Yeah, minor spoilers, but I think in that audio adventure they turn Oliver Twist into a Cyberman.
Oh God. Oh bloody
hell. Yeah, and Dodger's like, Oliver, what have they done to you?
Please, leader, can I have some more?
That would be perfect.
Dracula wandering around there as well. Listen to them, Cybermen of the night. What music they make.
This is rare. Children in Doctor Who.
Yes. Yeah.
Not being exploited to play crappy robots.
I'm glad you added the crappy robots to the end of that sentence.
Yeah, because you've got the Quarks and the Chumbleys as well. I'm sure they were small school children.
Yes, they were, yeah. Weren't the Chumbleys like children who won a contest, or was that the Quarks? I'm sure, like...
Oh, I'm not sure. They don't mention...
I don't know. I've heard that before.
That must be the worst prize ever. You've won a competition to be in Doctor Who. You're going to be in an uncomfortable dustbin where you can't see a thing, you can't move very fast, and you've got to move that costume with all your weight and look threatening.
And you're going to be stuck in there for a good couple of hours.
Yeah. I think there's laws prohibiting that now.
It will be. And this is just mad. It's great fun. The whole concept of putting his face back together is really like trippy, and I think you only really get a sense of how mental this is when you watch it kind of in the context of everything that surrounds it and where it and what came before it in Triton's era.
Yeah, because in coming off of a season 5 that showed Doctor Who is pretty much monsters attacking a base every week. Yeah. This pretty much goes against that and says Doctor Who can be anything.
Yeah.
Kind of like season 3 in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, the whole Jamie is safe and well. It sounds like something the Riddler would do.
Yeah, you were right, yeah. Again, it's just unique and inventive, and it's kind of, I think when you watch for the first time, you kind of play along with the Doctor trying to guess all these mysteries and stuff. And
that's true, yeah.
I mean, I have no plans at the moment to go to that time fracture thing, but
neither do I.
It's kind of cool if they reference this in that, and I guess it'd be a perfect environment to do something similar.
Is it a stage production? Is it a live theatre event?
It's an immersive theatre event, they're calling it. So, I guess it's something.
So is it like 4D?
It's something like, I think it's something like the Doctor Who experience was, where you kind of
okay,
can like fly the TARDIS and yeah, stuff like that, where you walk through these locations. And I'm not actually sure. It seems to have come out like really quickly. I didn't realize it was.
Yeah, because I said. Yeah, because I even said on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, we need a revival. We need a UK theatre tour like Doctor Who: The Ultimate Adventure.
Yeah. Well, did you go to Doctor Who Live back in 2010?
I did, yeah, and I even found the programme. I was clearing out my loft recently, and I even found the programme in there.
Oh, cool. Under my bed, I've still got the photos from my visit, and yeah, that was a really cool um, stage play, and it was
But
a
of
sequel to Carnival of Monsters, wasn't it?
Yeah, but Doctor Who in the theatre, typically they don't have the TV Doctor. I mean, Doctor Who Live did, but obviously it was Matt Smith just pre-recorded stuff. He wasn't there live because obviously he was doing Series 6.
Yeah.
And Trevor Martin played him in Seven Keys to Doomsday, I think, and Ultimate Avenger it was John Pertwee, Colin Baker, and even David Banks.
Yes, yeah, they had revolving door of doctors there, and yeah, Time Fracture has got all of them. there's apparently from all of them, which is pretty cool.
I honestly think they should go all out and do a theatre production.
Yeah,
Maybe get a new actor to play the Doctor if you don't want to get an old one, and just have fun with it.
Yeah, I agree. Would be awesome. Would be really cool.
I mean, I'd love to speak to fans from 1989 who actually went to see The Ultimate Adventure, just to ask what was it like for them.
I do, yeah, because there's so little. There's been barely any preservation of that. Like, there's so little information about it in clips and stuff of any performances of it. So, yeah, I'd like to.
Well, Wendy Padbury was in Seven Keys to Doomsday as the companion.
Yes, she was, yeah.
Plus, Hamish Wilson's accent, it sounds a bit Geordie.
Well, he's actually Scottish, isn't he? So it's
he is. It just sounds a lot Geordie than Fraser Hines'. It's like, I'm glad to see you again, Dr. Lake.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's because Fraser Hines is so, especially when he first starts out in season 4, it's so over the top almost, like, oh, hey, Doctor, like really over-egging it, and it kind of calms down. It goes along.
It's quite light, isn't it? Like, This is my lair, Doctor. Oh, Doctor, we'd better get out of here.
Yeah.
A bit like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh god. Oh, get Mrs. Doubtfire as the new companion.
Mrs. Doubtfire is a pre-Hartnell Doctor.
Oh yes.
Someone should edit that when the Master show in the Timeless Children, when the Master shows the Doctor, all those children regenerating, just edit in Mrs. Doubtfire going hello.
Oh, I'm on it. I'll do it after this.
Yeah, again, such an inventive concept, like the Forest of Words. It's brilliant.
Yeah, really, really good.
And I'll admit, the cliffhangers do get a bit repetitive because it's literally, it's not real, say it's not real. Ah, let's go.
yeah, exactly. I was watching a story recently where basically all the cliffhangers were the same. It was a Pertwee one.
The Mind of Evil.
That's it, yes.
Yeah, because literally all of them are someone being threatened by the Keller machine.
Literally all of them, yeah.
Yeah, I love that story, but yeah, the cliffhangers aren't too imaginative.
They're all the same, yeah. Mind of Evil was interesting for me because on paper it's got all the stuff that I should love in it, and I think it ends really well, but for some reason it's just never kind of clicked with me. I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's great. It's one of my top 5 Pertwee stories. I think it's Katie Manning's favourite story as well.
It is, yeah. I don't know, like, all the ingredients are there for me, and I don't know why. I've just never connected with it, I guess.
I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people who grew up with Doctor Who on UK Gold in the 90s, and they did show a few Pertwee stories in black and white, and they said, I think stories like The Ambassadors of Death and Mind of Evil, they looked a lot better in black and...
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing, and it is interesting sometimes to kind of play around with, like, turning the colour off on my TV and be like, how's this kind of looking? But then there are some stories like Terror of the Autons, for example. I can't imagine that without color, because that's just such a
Yeah.
colorful story.
God, look how tall he is compared to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the TARDIS team nicknamed themselves the shortest crew on Earth.
Yeah, yeah. That's not a
Yeah,
bad
Deborah
nickname.
Watling was only 4'11", I think.
Yeah, she's tiny. And in have you met her?
No, I never got the chance to meet her, sadly.
In real life, she's very small. She's so small.
And I think one of these toy soldiers was Fraser Hines' brother.
Oh, really? That's quite cool.
Nepotism. Now this unicorn in black and white, it looks really scary. It's shot really well, because
Yeah.
when you think of unicorns, you think of like beautiful mythical creatures, but this does not look nice at all.
No. Yeah. It's very well done, and especially because at a point you're aware of how it was done. It's just a giant stick stuck to a horse's head, but you just completely suspend your disbelief because it just looks so threatening.
Yeah,
And the fact that it's shot on film as well.
that's true, yeah.
And again, another episode, it just ends with them screaming and pleading. Like, what? What a brilliant edit.
I mentioned this in another commentary, but have you checked out the bonus feature, A Holiday for the Doctor on the Space Museum DVD?
I have before, not in ages though, but I have.
Yeah, the whole concept of that is going through all the times Doctor Who actors in the 60s took holidays,
Yeah.
and with this they say, unfortunately, illness was a lot like pregnancy in those days. You never planned it. Let's have a look at Fraser Hines in The Mind of Robert, episode 2. They edit together. He gets shot. Oh no, I've done his face wrong. Static. Oh, hello, Doctor, I'm back to normal. They just cut out Hamish Wilson. And it's funny, after this story, Doctor Who did take I think like a 3 or a 4 week break before season 6 carried on again with the invasion.
Yeah.
Which is really odd. It's like, though to be honest, if you were back then, if you were watching Doctor Who as it went out, it probably never went off the air, because after The Wheel in Space, they put on a repeat of The Evil of the Daleks week by week, and then after that, The Dominators, then The Mind Robber.
Yeah, so it filled the gap. And that repeat of Evil of the Daleks, there was a special intro for it, wasn't there?
There was, yeah, it's on the Evil of the Daleks CD.
Yes.
Yeah. Imagine if they did that now. Alright, Dan, if you're going to travel with us, you have to know about the Mighty Pating. Have you ever heard of the Mighty Pating? I mean, speaking of Dan, John, there's that video that went around recently of John Bishop on the TARDIS set saying, "Yeah, I'm filming my scenes as we speak," and
Yeah,
I hope to God he's kept his Scouse accent because I think it'd be awesome to have a Scouser in the
I
TARDIS.
hope so. The way he starts that video going, right, I'm on the set of Doctor Who. Um, yeah, that would be awesome. Because he's wearing a. Is he? He's. They've styled his hair weirdly, haven't they? I've seen from the pictures. They've combed it, and his hair's like naturally curly. So they've done a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's interesting about John Bishop that unlike actors like Matt Lucas and Catherine Tate, known for being comedians, he hasn't done too much serious work. He's mainly known for his stand-up, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. So it should be interesting to see how he goes. I have faith. I think it could be a really
Definitely,
and
yeah, because once again, we did get quite a few negative reactions that
yeah,
I don't think were justified.
people never learn really, do they? It's happened like so
Yeah,
many
I
times
don't think
before.
they are.
So many times before they've cast a comedian as a companion, and every time it's the same reaction from people, and then every time they're always proved wrong.
Yeah. It's like when they announced Nardole in Series 10, people were saying, I might skip Series 10.
I remember that.
like,
Yeah.
like, Jesus, what did he do? Steal all your pocket money and mash up your Doctor Who DVDs?
Well, there was beef, wasn't there, for a while between the Who addicts
Yeah.
and Matt Lucas.
To be honest, and I've read bits of Matt Lucas's autobiography, and the chapter where he talks about Doctor Who, he does talk about the online reaction, and just reading that, it has made me, and I hope others, think a bit more carefully of what they put online.
Yeah.
Because you never know, they could see it. Like, like Andrew Garfield said, I'm actually on Twitter, but I'm anonymous. He could be following any one of us.
Yeah, exactly. And every time you say something bad about Andrew Garfield, he's there watching you. Every time, and who knows? Yeah. Just actually come back to
This is...
John Bishop. Actually, quite a few years ago when I was still a kid, me and my dad bumped into him on the street. But
Oh,
it was like 10 years
nice.
ago now. I was still very young, so I don't remember much of it. But yeah, my dad's got a photo with him somewhere, just on the streets of Brighton, I think it was.
Oh, lovely.
Sorry, what were you going to say before?
Yeah, I was just going to say, uh, the second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, they're my favourite TARDIS team of the 60s, and maybe my favourite TARDIS team overall, because I think they work really well together, because I prefer Zoe to Victoria because she's a lot more resourceful, and,
Yeah.
yeah, Victoria just kind of screamed a lot.
Well,
Yeah, because, like, in one story, Victoria would be scared stiff of the Ice Warriors, not knowing what to do and getting captured. Then in Enemy of the World, she's quite good in that. She shows experience of cooking and even goes to hit who she thinks is Salamander.
Yeah.
I'm like, where'd that Victoria come from?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting actually. I never know which one I prefer because I think both work quite well because I like the kind of the dynamic that Victoria has because she seems super young. She seems younger than she actually is, and I like the paternal element.
Well, wasn't she written to be... Yeah, isn't the character brief that she was written to be 14 or 15?
She's meant to... Yes, she's meant to be like 14, 15.
Yeah.
In reality, Deborah Watling was 19, I think.
She was, yeah.
So she's playing a lot younger, but I don't know. It's interesting. I know.
It's so weird that it's weird that Troughton's companions, they're not from the present day.
Yeah.
Which almost seems unthinkable to some people these days. That you can't have a companion. Yeah. I mean, the closest we've had is Nardole, Jack Harkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It depends on whether or not you count Jack, because he's a companion, but he wasn't a sustained companion, was he? He was only in it for a few stories than guest appearances.
Hmm.
I'd say Nagel
Heck,
is
Ben
maybe
and
another
Polly
one.
were the last. Yeah, Ben and Polly were the last present day companions in the 1960s.
Yeah, yeah. Which seems so. It seems so weird because the original brief of Doctor Who was obviously you've got the audience in characters for Ian and Barbara, and they're very much from the present day, from our time, and then you've got Susan and the Doctor as kind of the otherworldly presence, and it seems so weird that by this point, only 6 seasons in, they've abandoned that dynamic already.
Imagine if the internet was around. What is this? Doctor Who bosses getting rid of the modern day companions? How am I supposed to relate to them?
exactly, yeah. I do think we are in desperate need of some variety there though, because with as much as I'm looking forward to Dan, I like John Bishop a lot. I think he could be really cool. I just when he was announced at the end of um, Revolution of the Daleks, I just thought I just doing the same thing again, really. Uh, just doing
Yeah,
this with modern day companion again, and it feels like he's just there to be Graham Mark II. Obviously, we've not seen him yet, so you can't judge. But it just seems like they're adding, another middle-aged
yeah, that's
man to the TARDIS, like we've just had.
yeah, that is my concern a bit that he might just be another Graham, but
Yeah,
yeah, fingers crossed he won't be like
I
that.
hope
But
so. Yeah, my
and I think
concern.
people were hoping for the first all-female TARDIS crew.
I was, to be honest, I was really hoping for a series of solo, like Doctor and one companion. Because if you think about it, we've not had that since Series 9. Because Series 10, you've got Bill and
Yep.
Nigel. Um, so
Hmm.
we've not had that since Series 9, and I just think it would be cool to go back to that dynamic for a bit. And yeah, all female TARDIS crew, first one, and who knows where that would have led for the Doctor and Yaz, depending on how you feel about the whole romantic relationship. But I was just kind of intrigued, and I'm looking forward to John Bishop. I just hope that my concern is that we're just going to get someone like Dodo, who was just kind of brought in to be another young girl in the 60s. So you got
Yeah.
Vicky was a replacement for Susan to fill the same role, but obviously she has a bit more
I
agency
mean,
to her, and then Dodo's the same thing, and then yeah,
to be honest, I preferred Vicky to Susan
I did.
because Susan tended to twist her ankle a lot and cry, whereas Vicky, she was an orphan, she had no family, so she just loved being part of the TARDIS crew and just loved having adventures. I mean, she's probably the highlight of the Space Museum because it's like she's so bored, she just wants something to happen.
Yeah, I love
Like
Vicky.
saying, I didn't sign up for boring adventures in the TARDIS. I want something to happen.
Yeah,
Do something, you what are they called, Morlocks.
yeah, exactly. I love Vicky. I think she's an awesome character. She's so likable and endearing, and it's such a shame that they just ended Maureen O'Brien's contract so abruptly. Because I
Yeah,
reckon Vicky could
because
have
they
stayed
took a
on.
holiday. Yeah, because obviously they took a break between season 2 and 3. She expected to still be working in series 3,
Yeah,
but they said, "Oh, after this story, you're
you're
gone."
gone.
And she said it was frustrating because she said, "If I knew I was going, I probably would have spent that time looking for work and the next thing."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's the thing. They treated her like crap, to be honest, and it's such a shame because Hartnell clearly loved her. You can see, like, as soon
yeah,
as she comes aboard, he was enamored with her. Like they've got
yeah.
such good chemistry, and there's that wonderful scene in the Crusade where there's a gif of it somewhere where they just hug and kind of embrace each other, and it's just a wonderful. They clearly got on so well. I just think it's such a shame we didn't get more of Vicky because she's brilliant, and yeah, big shame.
Yeah, they're great together in the Romans. I'm going to see Nero.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I think I've poisoned Nero. What? And honestly, given that all this dialogue from Gulliver here is from Gulliver's Travels, they they mix it in quite naturally.
Very much so, yeah. They don't give the game away at all, do they? It's such a unique
And it's definitely
twist.
down to the performance as well, because he's not just reading the dialogue like he's just reading a book. He's pretty much being the character and being very.
Yeah.
And if you've not read Gulliver's Travels, it's a real mystery for you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like I said earlier, the reception to this at the time was not a very positive one by the audience. They thought it was very silly, and I can kind
Yeah,
of see why.
Terence Dicks said he didn't really like it because he's not a big fan of fantasy.
Yeah, and although I don't agree with the criticisms that it is too silly, I can see why people reacted that way. If that makes sense, I can see, especially like compared to, like I said, what was around it and what people would come to expect from Doctor Who.
Speaking of Terence Dicks, I know they're putting out a compilation of his stories in basically a big Target book, aren't they? I think they're doing
Yeah.
Volume 1 and Volume 2. Heck, I think viewers voted for which stories they wanted to see.
Yes. Yes, they did. It was a voting thing, and you could pick and choose. And yeah, I think it's
And
great.
it's odd to me that one of the stories included is The Wheel in Space.
Yeah.
Then again, it's the only Cyberman story he's novelized.
Yeah, I guess they wanted to get like
Oh no, wait, sorry, he novelized Revenge of the Cybermen as well.
yeah. No, yeah, I guess they wanted to get a you got to get a Cyberman story in there, right? If you're gonna do it, you got to get the iconic.
Ironically, I hate Cybermen. I think they're particularly boring and you can't do much with them. But Eric Shayward loves his bloody Cybermen. Heck, those, the illusions of past companions in the Five Doctors. In the commentary, Terence Dicks says, "Now this stuff here, this was all written by Eric Shayward. I don't like it, I don't understand it, and if it was me, I'd have cut it."
I think the whole Rapunzel thing is fascinating as well because you're kind of tapping into fairy tale cliches now more than anything, like the
That's true,
princess
yeah.
and the prince and all that. I think it's really cool. It's a really unique story in so many ways.
Yeah, I do wonder if Stephen Moffat did take a few influences from this story and applied it to.
Yeah,
And again, you've got the Doctor, one male companion, one female.
yeah, yeah.
And with the main cast and the producers that they only work on one serial at a time. So maybe.
Yeah.
And in season 5, if a story had location filming, usually they'd have to be taken out of rehearsals for the previous story to complete that. For example, the scenes on the beach in Fury from the Deep, they were being done whilst they were rehearsing, I think, The Web of Fear.
Yeah,
And,
I've heard,
obviously that's hard because you're working on 2 stories at a time.
Well, that's it, and not just 2 stories at a time, 2 stories that are so incredibly different from their locations as well. I think getting in that headspace must have been quite
Yeah, definitely.
a challenge.
The Space Pirates is considered to be the worst Troughton story, but Terrance Dicks has an explanation for it. Bob Holmes wasn't working with me, he was working with Derek Sherwin.
I mean,
That's his explanation.
to be fair, if any of you have seen my video I did immediately after
Oh,
watching the Space Pirates,
yeah, I've seen it.
that was my reaction. God, it was shit.
Stu Bagford did a really he did one quite a few years ago, a review of the Space Pirates. I think it might have been an April Fool's video or just a piss take video saying,
Yeah.
"It's great that they finally brought back the Space Pirates. My favourite scene was where the Doctor fought off those pink elephants."
Yes, I love that video so much.
Yeah, I've not listened to the soundtrack, I don't really plan to. I've only seen episode 2, and the impression I got from it was Mel Brooks must have been sitting at home and thought,
It is.
and maybe he just sat on the script for years, then Star Wars came out and thought, now I can add Star Wars elements to it.
Yeah, the Space Pirates is just so. They might have gotten away with it if it was a 4-parter. It would have been a push, but they might have just gotten away with it. But holy shit!
I mean, Fraser Hines has said it's a story I'd like to see back the most.
Really?
I'm like, oh, maybe there is something good in it. And Wendy Padbury has said that interesting story about one of the actors. He could take out his eye because he had a fake eye.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He would like put it in random places to scare people, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it, it's another thing Wendy Padbury said. She said she'd like to see it back because she can't remember anything about it. And when you watch the reconstruction and obviously listen to the soundtrack, I can see why she can't remember anything about it, because half the time the TARDIS crew are just stuck in a cupboard. That's half the story.
Are they? And from what I've heard, are they not in episode 6 at all because they had to do location filming for the War Games?
Yeah, no, they're not in it at all. They are.
Oh my god!
They come into episode 1 about 15 minutes in, so the first 15 minutes are just boring space pirates talking about, things that you don't care about at all. It's just.
Yeah, because I've seen episode 2 and I'm like, God, they're...
Yeah. No, it
Space cupboard.
Yeah, and the one thing that's notable about it is you could say it's the first example of a Dr. Light story, or
possibly, yeah. Robert Holmes wrote. Well, actually, no. Mission to the Unknown was technically a Dr. Light story.
Yeah, I guess that is true. But yeah, Space Pirates is bad, man. It's really.
But imagine if the internet was around when John Pertwee took over, and they said Robert Holmes was going to write the opening story. So we have hack writer Robert Holmes, who wrote classics like the Crotons and the Space Pirates. I wonder how much did they pay him to bring him back, or did he sleep with one of the crew members to do this? I'll just make up any story because I can't comprehend people liking stuff different to me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, when you do watch the Space Pirates, it is baffling that it is written by Robert Holmes, because it is just like, Christ, he wrote so many classics, and what is this?
Yeah, I mean, Terrance Dicks has said it's one of his few failures. And also, apparently, I've heard he didn't have that much help from anyone, because Terrance Dicks had to work on rewriting The Seeds of Death, planning for the War Games, and Derek Sherwin had to take up producer's duties whilst Peter Wright was unavailable or ill, so he didn't have that much help.
Yeah, this is the thing, right? Season 6 is it's a very troubled production in so many ways, because you have the production team that are kind of on their way out and getting ready to completely reboot the show. you've got them testing that reboot in the Invasion. You've got
Yeah.
Triton, who was getting very not irritable, but was getting fed up with the quality of the stories, and he didn't like the scripts.
Yeah.
You've got so
And
many
honestly,
things going on.
if you look at his performance in season 6, it's particularly in the war games. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's definitely a lot more agitated and defensive.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I do think it adds to his performance, because his performance in the Time Lord's trial is terrific.
Yeah.
He's funny, sarcastic, but also completely at the mercy of them.
Yeah, well, I think in the war games you can get away with that kind of defensiveness because it is his last story being put through the ringer, like completely put through the ringer. But yeah, it is. It is, but because
Have you heard about Troughton's double life?
Go on.
Yeah, apparently obviously he had a wife and his kids, Michael and David Troughton,
Yeah.
but he had a secret family, something that I don't even think his mother or something I don't think knew about, and his sister apparently found out. I could be wrong, but she vowed never to speak to him again because he had a double life.
No one
Like,
knew.
wow.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh God. I mean, he wrote to someone around the time the Space Pirates was going out, or I think it was when they were rehearsing it, and he wrote it down. He just said, "Look, it's episode 3, and we've been stuck in this cupboard. We're still stuck in this. We're still stuck in this bloody cupboard. The viewers are just gonna turn off." Like he was so kind of annoyed with the scripts, and he was just like, "People are just gonna turn off, and they're not gonna watch this drivel."
Mm-hmm. But I think part of me wonders if the Space Pirates will be the final animation. But again, part of me wonders that with only 5 stories to animate, are they just going to finish off the whole Troughton era? Because it's probably, with the stories we've got left, it's probably a lot easier to do than quite a few of the stories in the Hartnell era.
I mean, to be honest with you, the Space Pirates would be an alright one to do earlier on, because you then got models for you get a model for Zoe. You can
That's true, yeah.
Test some kind of new animation resources, I guess. You have that freedom to kind of play around with it, because it's a story that not a lot of people hold in high regard. I feel like you could experiment a bit with it, as opposed to like if you, I don't know, Evil of the Daleks, say, because people love it so much. If you implemented these new tools that just did not work and looked shit on that, people would crucify you. But I think if they experimented a bit with the Space Pirates, no one would really mind.
I do like this. The Carcass, Zoe's aware of that he is a fictional character, but the Doctor's never heard of him.
Yeah. And you know what? When there was the rumours going around about the 2016 Christmas special that there'd be a superhero in it, this was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the Carcass.
Bring back the Carcass. The way Christopher Robbie, who plays the Carcass looks now, he could pass for Santa Claus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because have you watched the making of documentary on Revenge of the Cybermen?
No, I haven't.
On the season 12 Blu-ray? Yeah, give it a watch. Christopher Robbie's on it, talks about what he remembers about doing Revenge of the Cybermen, and yeah, he looks like Santa.
Oh, Christ, I mean, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people compare that scene with the fighting to the scene from Justice League where Superman comes back to life and is all confused. Because it's just a confused superhero punching stuff randomly.
Now, I watched the Snyder Cut recently and thought, wow, Superman is really the highest paid extra in the world, isn't he, for that film?
Essentially, yeah. What did you?
He doesn't say. I swear he doesn't say anything, and they don't resurrect him till like 2 hours and 40 minutes into the film.
He says he goes not impressed when when he gets attacked by Steppenwolf, and that's about it. What did you think of the Snyder Cut overall?
I liked it. I think.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think out of Snyder's trilogy, I'd probably say Man of Steel is probably his best.
Interesting.
It just feels the most coherent. But yeah, if you're a Snyder fan, you obviously think it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. If you're a Snyder fan, you think it's a masterpiece. But I really enjoyed it. I think just for me, it's my favorite out of that trilogy. Just because for me, it's just the one that felt the most joyous. I think.
I'm surprised Man of Steel doesn't have an extended
I'm
cut.
surprised actually. I'm really surprised about that. But I guess that was pure Zach. But yeah, I think for me it was just like actually watching it was a surprise because having come off the 2017 cut and just everything that went on with that, it was just nice to see kind of that part of his life brought closure. I guess. I don't know.
He mentions the Yahoos. I mean, I know there's that picture of Gulliver being like tied down by tiny people on an island.
Yes.
Are they the Yahoos?
I don't know. And it is weird, like hearing Triton talk about the Master, because it does just
Yeah.
you don't hear that very often. Because yeah, it just feels very considering what would happen 2 years later.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that theory holds. The theory I mentioned earlier about at the end of his life, he couldn't do the whole body transfer again like he did in The Keeper of Traken. So he uploaded his consciousness to the Land of Fiction supercomputer.
Yeah.
And again, because the Master's plan in this is to take over the Earth, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's his plan, just to take over the Earth through a computer and trying to dig up gullible humans to do that for him that he can easily take over. Well, there's a theory that the war chief in the war games is a master, isn't he?
Yeah, there's that's quite a popular theory. But again,
I mean, he has a history with the Doctor, but yeah, I mean, the third Doctor in Terror of the Autons is aware of the Master, so surely he'd know what he looks like.
For me, yeah, it's one of those things that I think if it is the Master, it makes the universe smaller. I like the idea that the Doctor has a history with other Time Lords apart from the Master. Yeah.
Given that in Terror of the Autons, the third Doctor does know who the Master is. He just, because he says, that jackanapes, all he does is cause trouble.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the Doctor, obviously he wasn't around yet, but the Doctor could have been thinking, shit, is this actually the Master from my home planet?
Yeah. He does.
Yeah, I love the look of the computer, and also those hexagonal doors, almost like a beehive. He's the queen bee, sat in the middle.
It is very cool. Yeah, it is. I really like it. He always reminds me of Professor Travers.
It is.
Yeah.
The Doctor meets Wilfred again in the End of Time. Well, people have waited years to find me, and you manage it in a few hours. Weren't saying that when you met Professor Travers again after a short period of time.
Yes.
Yeah, he says he's been there since 1926. So does that mean when he goes back it's the present day, which would be 1968? So he's been missing for
Yeah.
about 42 years.
Yeah. I mean, time is relative in Doctor Who, isn't it?
There is a bit of Wizard of Oz here as well, because you've got an old. In that film, the professor is blown away by a tornado and ends up in a strange dreamland, and basically becomes its ruler, kind of like the old writer here.
Well, it's probably I would think it would have been a source of inspiration, right? Because they're pulling from all sorts of literature anyway. So
Yeah, true, and also when they were conceiving the Doctor back in 1963, Verity Lambert said, "We need someone like Frank Morgan in The Wizard of Oz."
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Those bookcases are clearly cardboard cutouts.
The obvious cardboard cutout.
I know Peter Ling, who wrote this, he did have another idea for another serial where they start from the Doctor and Companions. They start from the end and they work their way backwards to the beginning, so the story can end happily ever after. That would have been an interesting idea.
Very interesting. Yeah.
It amazes me Stephen Moffat never thought of that
I was
whenever he wrote us an episode.
That's very Moffat, isn't it? I would imagine like the Doctor arriving in the midst of a cyber invasion, and then slowly it just gets easier and easier.
Yeah, I mean, closest we get to that type of story is probably the Space Museum, because the ending is set out for them. They become exhibits in a museum, and
yeah,
it's so weird. Part one of that story, because I had no idea what it was about when I first watched it, and I was like, wow, this is really good. What happens next? And then the Morlocks start speaking in part 2, and I'm like, oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's the Space Museum in a nutshell. um,
Yeah, the Doctor baffles me in that story. Doctor, we've got our clothes back on. Well, I should hope so, my dear boy. Lost a button. That's interesting. It's so weird.
That's just Doctor Who on his mad one again.
I fooled them all. I am the master.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the challenge is if anyone were to do that story, like going backwards, you'd have to keep up tension, right? Because the problem
True, yeah.
with that gimmick is things are getting easier, so you've got to keep up the tension throughout, which I guess is quite difficult. It would require someone like Stephen Moffat to write it, who's very clever.
Really good with time travel. Yeah, this cliffhanger here where they're getting squashed by the book, it's really scary because I think they might have. It looks like they're getting suffocated.
Yeah, for sure, and it's really the fact that the book completely closes as well. It's a very cool effect because it would have been easy to make that laughable by just them squeezing the book
Yeah.
and then going like it would have been very easy to make that look like a joke. But the fact that the book actually closes all the way, it's a very good effect.
Yeah, now they've become part of fiction.
Yeah. Of course, we didn't talk about Medusa, did we? We didn't talk about that. Medusa,
yes, true. I thought I thought it was I thought it was quite a nice effect of how you saw the snakes coming out of her head, and also only her hand was in shot.
Yeah.
And the way it touches Zoe's head, trying to turn it to get her to look at it, that was quite creepy.
It's very cool, yeah, and I love the stop motion snakes and everything. It's really good stuff, really good. I'd say episode 4 was probably where the story lulls a bit. It sort of goes into it kind of slows down a bit before this big finale.
It wasn't obviously as a 4-parter. It is supposed to be part 3, and I think for writers, part 3 was probably the hardest to write because first 2 episodes you've got to set everything up. Part 3 you can't rush to the climax yet, so you've got to include a bit of padding.
Yeah, exactly. And it's episode 4 of this does feel like a part 3, and that's everyone always says, "Oh, part 3 is the one where it gets a bit boring, and then part 4 picks up again." But they're brilliantly designed, those robots, though. They are really good.
They are, yeah. Yeah, and the climax to this story is just completely insane.
It's absolutely mental.
But
really
it's everything that Doctor Who can be. It's anything. You've got Blackbeard the pirate, Sir Lancelot, D'Artagnan.
Yeah.
The guy with the big nose.
Oh yeah, it's really fun, and it's a testament to the variety of Doctor Who, and why it's such a colourful show. And it always is weird because I often think I describe like season 3 as colourful, even though it's a black and white season. But it just because it's so filled with variety and stories like this, I colourful is an appropriate word for them, even though obviously they are black and white. Doctor Who goes on a quest to save the master tapes of the '60s episodes.
Well, in the Ultimate Foe, I think they make a reference to that because Glitz says the 6 tapes of the Matrix, and then I think obviously the 6 Doctors, and I think Mr. Popelwick says tapes 1 and 2 were wiped to preserve archive storage or something like that, and yeah, that genuinely happened. And it's funny with this TARDIS team, Jamie seems the most down to earth out of the 3 of them, because the Doctor and Zoe revel in science and experiments and things like that, and Jamie just looks at them confused, obviously because he's from 1745, and it is a complete opposite to him in, say, season 4, because you'd see him go, the Phantom Piper, or it's a flying beastie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice progression.
Because by season 5, he's very much settled in, and he just takes it in that he is going to see bizarre things. Because
yeah. And it's a very clever resolution to the story as well. It's a really
because
nice resolution.
They basically overload the computer, don't they? Yeah, and it's and just there what we've seen, it's a really good way of Doctor can't just simply write it down and say the Doctor defeats the Master, the end, because he becomes part of the world, kind of like in the Celestial Toymaker, where you've got if the Doctor wins, the world blows up, and so does he. But if he loses, he becomes part of the Toymaker's playthings.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, if this was in the 80s, I bet it would be more, the whole fiction idea would be more meta, and I'm willing to bet there would have been like cameos from past monsters and things like that.
Yeah, well, something interesting about the 80s. The 80s Doctor Who is marked by a shift into self-awareness, I think, because the 60s
it is,
and 70s are very... They're played straight, even in
definitely,
in the comedic seasons of the Graham Williams era, they still the sense of verisimilitude is still kept up. In the 80s, especially the latter part of the 80s, you get characters like the Whiz Kid in Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and the show starts to become a bit postmodern in that way. It starts to really recognize within itself that it's a long-running show. And I find that very fascinating that in its twilight years, it started to do that.
Yeah, I friggin' love that scene where Jamie and Zoe pretty much rub their hands like pantomime villains and be like, it's not over yet. Yeah, the kid's laughing at him. That was a bit creepy.
It is. It's really sinister. Again, it's like a lot of this story, it's like things that are quite normal, but out of context and divorced from their context and put into these scenarios are really creepy because there's no explanation for it.
Yeah. That line is so weird. Man will become a string of sausages all the same. I mean, wouldn't sheep make more
Yes,
sense?
yeah.
Man will become a bunch of sheep all the same.
But yeah, like the content that the story presents is so silly and out there, but it's so creepy because of where it's placed. It reminds me
Yeah,
of the bit in Nightmare on Elm Street where the sheep or the lamb jumps out, and it's supposed and people laugh at that now. They're like, "Oh, random lamb popping up out of nowhere." But I think it's creepy because yes, it's a lamb, but it's a lamb in a really weird setting that you wouldn't expect to see. You wouldn't expect to see a sheep in like this dark and dank corridor where the scene is, and
yeah.
it just reminds me of that.
And
When you take things out of context and put them into other locations, that can be creepy within itself.
yeah, I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street,
Oh,
but I
really?
don't think I'll ever take it seriously because of the Simpsons parody. You'll pay for this with your children's blood. All right, how are you gonna get them? Skeleton power.
it's like um, it's like when I finally saw The Shining for the first time. Like I didn't take it as serious. I love The Shining, but I didn't take it seriously because of the shinning. The Simpsons.
It's amazing. Whenever the Simpsons reference Doctor Who, it's always Tom Baker.
Yes.
I mean, particularly in the 90s. Like that Sideshow Bob episode where he wants to get rid of television. Send in the esteemed representatives of television. One of them is Tom Baker as the Doctor.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he was the face of the classic series, arguably, wasn't he? He was the face of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So in season 10, the Maid to the Mob episode where they go to the Bimon Sci-Fi Con, he's there signing the autographs.
I think it's in the Warriors of the Deep commentary. I think Janet Fielding mentions, "Oh, Doctor Who's been parodied on The Simpsons," and Peter Davison's like, "Oh, really?" But it's Tom. Oh.
Oh, I need to re-listen to some of those Davison era commentaries soon because I love them. They're so
they
funny.
just they tear them
They
apart
really
like on
do.
Black Orchid.
Oh, they hate Black Orchid, don't they? They really dislike it.
I really Yeah, it's so weird because on the new series commentaries, they're like, "Oh, everything is
Yeah,
wonderful. We're all so great. We're all
yeah,
brilliant." Then again, Journey's End, the temp, David Tennant does pick apart some of the script. He's like, "Oh, where are you getting all these MacGuffins from, Russell? You've got Warp Star, you've got Osterhagen Key. Don't you think it's a bit too far?"
the Last of the Time Lords commentary is really funny because you've got the
Yeah,
who have you got? You got David Tennant, Freema Agyeman, and John Barrowman, I think, and it's just him
yeah,
basically just taking the piss.
yeah.
But yeah, it's always fun because I really love Black
Ah,
Orchid, but listening to the commentary, it's so funny.
yeah. I love this climax. Oh, they're just pulling out so many fictional characters and just having a blast with
Yeah,
it.
the story
And
just
also they put in those, and they put in quips like the Doctor saying, "Ah, you'll have to do better than that."
yes, yeah, the story just says fuck it and just does anything it wants to, and it has the
Hmm.
stock orchestral music as well.
Yeah, there's no music in this apart from that
Yeah,
scene, isn't
there's
there?
just like weird ringing and creepy atmosphere, isn't there? There's no actual.
Heck, there's no music in the Dominators either, or the Wheel in Space for that matter.
No, yeah. Well, to be fair, in the Dominators, you've got the noise of the of the quarks.
The co- oh, shall we destroy?
It's like in the
I mean, I'm not against women voicing robots, but who heard that voice and thought, "Yep, that sounds threatening.
yes.
Yes, this is going to be the new Daleks."
It's like in Web Planet, you don't need much. You've just got the annoying ringing of the of the Menoptera, the Zarbi. The story really does just go absolutely mental and just does whatever it wants.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I
brilliant.
love about it. Yeah. Yeah, I still think the supercomputer is the master. This is his final battle with the Doctor.
Yeah, yeah. At the
They're
end,
fighting over fictional characters. Like, obviously they knew each other as children, and yeah, they're kind of fighting like kids would with action
yeah,
figures.
and it's such a clever thing. Like the fact that they're having to write this story, and they're trying to write this story. Each one is trying to do it in their own favor, but the Doctor can't say his name because it'll make him instantly lose. So
Exactly.
putting him in that situation, it's really clever. It's
It
such
is,
a really
yeah.
unique and fun and interesting concept.
The computer in this story, it does remind me a bit of the Great Intelligence
Yes,
as well.
yeah, same.
A being that has no form or shape, but it can control so
Yeah.
much.
Well, yeah, there you go. It's another Professor Travers
Hmm.
similarity.
Well, he was going to be in the invasion,
Yeah,
but they realised if we do that, we're going to have to pay a fee to the writers, which we really don't want to do
yeah.
because, yeah, after the Dominators, they more or less. It was like that scene on The Simpsons where comic book guy bans Bart and Milhouse. The producers were like, "Smile, please. Thank you." Puts them under a list of banned for life.
Yeah.
Though, interestingly enough, Henry Lincoln is the only Doctor Who writer from the 60s who is still alive.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yep,
Christ,
that's
that's
that's kind of
that
sad.
is really sad.
Yeah, he's 90 years old, and I don't know where he is now.
No, I don't know. Would you ever get him for bonus
Because
features?
Mervyn,
I don't know.
well, Mervyn Haseman is on the Dominators.
Yeah,
Because because funnily enough, Mervyn Haseman makes a comment saying the annoying thing is they scrapped our other two stories, and this is the only one we've got. And that was before it came back.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he got to see the Web of Fear again, which is such a shame.
It would have been nice if he did.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe get Toby Hadoke to do a documentary on him like he did with Peter R. Newman and
Yeah,
Lenny Mayne.
that Peter R. Newman one's fascinating. Just the fact that there's barely any record of this guy.
Yep.
It's like the ongoing mystery of the guy who what did he play in the Feast of Stephen? He played some professor in the Feast of Stephen, and there's no records of him. There's no photos of him. There's no record of any work he ever did. He might as well not have never existed. There's just a name, and people have theorized, oh, maybe Hartnell played that part, and it was like a double role, adding to the comedic effect. But because the episodes are missing, we'll never know. And it's this big mystery of who the hell is this guy. It's really interesting.
But yeah, that was The Mind Robber.
Yeah.
A very unique story in the Troughton era, but it's definitely not a bad thing because I think it's fantastic. It's just full of imagination. The three main actors are on top form, I think, given that Wendy Papri had only just joined. And yeah, just really great stuff. An example of working in a troubled production, but making the best of what they've got.
Exactly, and I completely agree. And like you said, it's just full of fun and imagination and color and life and just a brilliant story. It ends quite abruptly, but I think that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really like it. It's not one that I'll watch over and over again, but it's certainly a standout in the Triton era just because of how different and unique it actually is. So yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, because personally, Personally, I probably would have ended it with the opening of the invasion where they all get back in the TARDIS, maybe have the cliffhanger for that be where the missile's about to hit them.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And then that can lead into the invasion.
Yeah, but I guess what we were talking about earlier with like because episode 1's missing, we don't really know whether it implied that this was a dream or not. Maybe they wanted to leave it ambiguous, and therefore the ending is
Yeah,
ambiguous. Who knows?
let us know in the comments if you think this story is a complete dream.
Absolutely, yeah, because it is so open ended. I'd be interested to hear some theories about that, but yeah. So I hope you enjoyed the commentary, everyone. Next week we'll be back with the Third Doctor. What will we be doing next week?
We will be travelling to Peladon in The Curse of Peladon.
Yes, Curse of Peladon next week. In the meantime, go subscribe to Isaac's channel, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.